Welcome to the Brainstorm episode 87. Nick, we're talking Apple losing its dominance. Is that what's happening? Is this finally the moment?
Maybe.
What happened?
Well, one, we should say up front that we are a little bit late to this story, but here we are.
The story's just starting. This is just
we're 2 weeks late to the actual ruling, but we'll get right into it here. So April 30th, there was an updated ruling to the Apple and Epic lawsuit, where Epic a few years ago had come at Apple for their App Store policies, specifically around payments. And what was happening is, given alternative payment methods, Apple had been imposing a 27% fee on purchases external to the app ecosystem. Epic has been fighting this since, first-party payments are subject to 30% take from Apple. But we finally got an additional ruling from the courts here, and it is very much in favor of Epic, which is, I think, a great sign for the broader ecosystem. It's, going to cause definitely some turbulence here for Apple. But I'll just give you the four big bullet points in terms of what Apple is now prohibited from doing. So the first is imposing any commission or fee on purchases made outside an app, restricting developer style formatting or placement of links for external purchases, blocking or limiting the use of buttons or other call to actions, or interfering with consumer choice to leave an app except for a neutral message to the users that they are being directed to a third-party site. So Apple, in this whole process has been trying to curb developers from linking to external sources for payment to try to get around Apple's first-party take rate. They've imposed additional fees. As I mentioned in the beginning, they've put up messages really to make the user try and stay with Apple's own payment method, or what Apple allows developers to do. Epic has been fighting this. They were the first one, but I would say there's a lot of developers, probably the large majority, that have been sitting on the sideline waiting for a ruling like this to come down. You actually saw right after this, Spotify sent out an updated app push to be able to do, now external linking to payment options. So you can think of any digital-based subscription service now is sitting in the driver's seat, being able to redirect to external links. So pushing individual to a web page to then be able to pay, getting around Apple's internal fees. So this is a big win. We'll see what happens. Apple has already filed an injunction to stop this. When you get into the court system, I don't know how many times you can actually appeal, but I assume this is going to make its way all the way to the tippy top. But here we are 2 weeks later. We're now sitting here. Developers are happy, but I would say also cautious, because you know how these things can go in terms of the appeal process.
Right. So are the floodgates actually open is my question, right? You had Spotify jump on immediately. Apple's reaction is, hey, let's patch the dam. Well, what's going to happen? How does this play out? Is Apple just about to see a huge hit to its revenue because people are going out of store, out of App Store?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a possibility. Again, you have to understand, right? You're still going to be able to purchase, or developers will still probably provide you with that option that links directly to Apple's payment systems. But what's going to happen is they're going to definitely try and redirect you to the external linking, because one, not only do they can now charge a lower cost. So imagine a $10 subscription that you've been paying 30% to Apple on. You now can get that back if someone signs up through an external link. So you could offer and say, hey, if you do this through this external link, we'll only charge you $8.99 or $7.99, whatever you determine you want to give back to the consumer. I would say, how could this ultimately benefit Apple? Just to give both takes here.
I like this point. This was the point that I think is important, that the money might not actually leave the ecosystem.
Right. So the money is going to potentially leave the ecosystem through the form of direct linking and their internal payment processing systems. But it's not potentially going to leave all of Apple's ecosystem, because over the past few years, I would say behind the guise of privacy, Apple has been working to build out their own internal ad network. And I think that's where you could see them make up a large portion of this revenue downfall if it comes to that, where, yes, now a developer has the option to link to an external party. They no longer have to pay this 27% fee. So what do they do with that increased revenue? Well, they throw it back into the ecosystem through advertising, through Apple, so they can drive more user engagement and user signups. So Apple, potentially has a way to make some of the loss back up. But a lot has to happen. We have to see how this plays out. It's not really through the court system. Obviously, it's working in the developers' favor. But, we're talking about one of the largest companies in the world. I think they're going to try and defend this. I think wrongfully until, this is probably seen by the Supreme Court if it gets to that. So we'll see.
All right. So in recent conversations about Apple, we have AI blunders with Siri. We now have a crack in the app ecosystem walled garden. That seems, is there a third leg to this wobbly stool?
Well, we could go back to the Vision Pro if we want to start for the launch of not a failed product, but a product that really hasn't gotten off the ground for them in a meaningful way. I would say that was probably the first domino if you were to go back that far.
So if we were being negative, we'd say a loss of hardware mojo, AI blunders, and now a crack in the monopoly.
I think that is a fair take. But I will say on the other side, you do have, a billion plus installs in user base from a hardware. We're still in, I would say, the early days of AI in that, we haven't seen a purpose-built operating system that has been powered by one of these chatbots yet. So I think there's still room to be able to navigate in this world. One, because it's happening so fast and things change seemingly overnight in the AI world. So is this, the nail in the coffin? I don't think so. But, things have definitely started to take a turn for the worse when you look at, the execution of Apple. But, you can always ride the ship.
That's right. Don't sleep on distribution.
Right.
But Nick, I know we're trying to keep this snappy. Maybe just a quick aside. So if all you came was for the Apple, then you can leave now. But if you want to stay for the fun part, here we go. Nick, the most addicting thing I've used recently, Replit.
Yes.
It's like I literally, and I was worried at first, right? You got to give the credit card information. You're like, okay, prompts, whatever. This is going to run up a huge bill. I spent 8 hours going back and forth. I think I spent $12.
Yeah.
And it's, if you've never coded before, get on Replit, try and build a tool. I'm sure there's some task you've done multiple times and you're like, oh, how do I automate this? Just go crazy. It's so fun and frustrating, but the frustration is part of the fun.
Yeah, I think, we've been using the term internally a lot more in recent days and weeks. Vibe coding. I think we're all starting to get access to some of these tools. I had been playing around with VO first, and then I hear others talk about Bolt, but Replit is the one we're using in-house, and just playing around with that. I think I've had one of the biggest aha moments I think I've ever had working at Arc using this tool in terms of thinking about how there's going to be this technological progression and thinking about this no code world where I've never learned how to code. I don't understand it to the extent I probably would have needed to build something 2 years ago. But being able to build, we were playing around with it last week, right, Sam? We built a web page, pretty useful. And it took about an hour and a half of back and forth. I think if you look at the credits, it was less than $4 to create. And I think of that in the context of, being able to, one, lower the cost of creation for individuals. So you and I now can code or prompt a coding agent to build something for us. Maybe it's not the best tool in the world, but it gets the job done for us. And I think that is extremely disruptive to a point that the market investors have not caught on yet, because we're living in a world where you have all of these verticalized SaaS offerings. And I think that, to me, is going to end in a way that is not yet fully appreciated, because you can have a singular platform that a company can provide to other companies that you can now introduce coding onto and have companies build their own tools specific to their use case. So not having to fit a general purpose software tool to what you want to use internally. It's the reverse. And I think that is like one of the biggest realizations I've had working at Arc. There's been a few others, but this is, next in line with anything I've been like, oh my God, this is going to disrupt everything.
Okay. So Nick, do you agree with this? I think almost every company is probably paying for some SaaS tool that can be in-housed within a day.
I would 100% agree.
Okay. So this is what I would say. We're about to enter summer internships. If you are an intern at a company, find some SaaS tool that they're using for something that's so simple, create the tool, present it, and be like, look, we can save $50,000 a year if we do this. That's what I would do. If you're out there, someone do it. Let us know if you're doing it. Maybe we'll try and do it too. But I think that's a great way to provide super high value.
Yeah, totally agree. I think everyone should get on. It takes playing around with these tools to fully understand the magnitude of change that's about to happen. And that appreciation, I think, can only, we can sit here and talk about it till we're blue in the face. But really the best way to do this is actually have, go out there and use it. And so maybe what we'll do, Sam, we'll bring Frank on next week and we'll do a live vibe coding session on our Replit account, and we'll build a tool so everyone can see. So you're going to have to watch the YouTube version of this show next week to be able to understand the power of what we're talking about.
Amazing. Nick, thank you for the update on Apple. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I look forward to seeing more Replit creations. We'll see everyone next week.
Live demo next week. So make sure you tune in. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sam.